Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CS Cyber. I'm Sean.
And I'm Chad.
And it's post-election. And we're not going to talk about the election right now. We will later.
We will, yeah.
But I think we're going to start with the gift that keeps on giving, folks. It's the city of Columbus, Ohio breach.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So what was it, 500,000, 500,000 records were exposed. What's really interesting about this story...
I don't know about that number, but go ahead.
Yeah. So who exposed the data is a question, right? So Columbus came out and said, the data was encrypted. It's corrupt. It's not usable. Well, a guy said that's not true. And then Columbus tried to charge him with exposing the data.
They tried to charge him civilly, not charge. They sued him civilly. Actually, they didn't even really sue him. They petitioned for a civil protection order.
Well, they dropped the lawsuit.
Had it got to a lawsuit?
It had got to a lawsuit. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of. I mean, it was all the same stuff, right? I mean, it was like kind of what came out in the original breach. So I don't think this is new.
Right.
New breach data, but it was like the bank account, social security numbers, all that jazz. But yeah, they had a lawsuit against him, and we're trying to say this was the guy that exposed the data, which is I think is just ridiculous.
No,
this is the guy I would call him the whistleblower that tried to say, hey, this data is usable and it's not encrypted, and he went to media outlets. So
yeah, so. I mean, just from my experience, the way this works is those 500,000 residents that showed up was the result of forensics. So that's the process where forensics says of the data that was sent to Recida or that Recida had that was unencrypted, 500,000 people were impacted by that. So I know what the city is saying here that maybe, I don't know if they're implying that he was responsible for the leakage of 500,000 or was part of that.
Well, they said, they filed a lawsuit against him, David Leroy Ross, or what was the name he went by? I forget the guy's name.
Oh, Goodwolf.
Yeah, Goodwolf.
Connor Goodwolf.
For allegedly threatening to share the stolen data.
Yeah. So, I followed it for a long time, the story. And, what he was doing was... there was just bad communication there. So the city was not being transparent with the citizens, vendors, and the people that were, part of this, and the media about the type of data that they held on them and what was impacted. So what Connor was trying to do was use the accessible data on the dark web, which is not illegal to obtain,
right?
To show the media the type of real data that was out there that the city was not prepared to discuss. So, in that process, the public learned a lot about the type of data that a local government has on you, and it is a lot.
Yeah.
Lots.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. Like I'm all for transparency, and I think the city should have been more transparent about this. They should have helped the residents understand what they had and how to protect it instead of handling it the way they did. So I'm glad that this got resolved. We'll just say that. I'm glad that Connor got some type of resolution for this. I'm not against what he did, but the only feedback that I would give is, in the future, I would make sure, and maybe this stuff was done, so I don't have the inside information from that perspective. I would just say if you're going to do this in the future and you're a security researcher and you download data off the dark web and you want to share it with a media outlet, definitely make sure that you have counsel. Make sure that you have linked up counsel with the news station's counsel. Make sure that you have a memorandum of understanding or a letter of intent explaining, the purpose of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think there just has to be a trail in a legal representation in order to do this safely.
Yeah. And I think they just kind of left it with, we need better communication channels for reporting, and the city needs to rebuild trust with the cyber community. That's kind of where he left it. But
the city needs to rebuild trust with their citizens, but go ahead.
Well, I just saw something. I can't remember if it was Canada or the EU that was passing legislation to actually protect security researchers, and it kind of made me think of this. Right? I mean, this guy just got information and he's trying to share it, and he's trying to find somebody that'll listen, and then he gets hemmed up in something that's kind of ridiculous, I think.
Yeah, man. I mean, you can have a discussion. We could talk all day long about what the definition of a security researcher is. So when you call the insurance company and you disclose to them that you've had a incident, and they assign a forensic institution to you in order to gather evidence, those are security researchers. So, however, the difference is, as I'm sure people will point out to us, is that there's a contractual agreement between those parties. And that's what I was referring to when I said in the future,
right,
if you're a security researcher and you're going to do this, I think there has to be some rules of engagement. I'm not against what you're doing. Obviously, just don't break the law, right? I mean, you're not allowed to. Well, let's take that Have I Been Pwned site. That is a perfect example. He wanted to do that with this data. He wanted to take the data that he had obtained from the dark web, and he wanted to put it into a database where somebody could put in their information and see if their data was impacted by that. It wouldn't allow you to search that data. It would just say, you've been impacted by this. Right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
it's a gray area.
Yeah, it's super gray. I think it just opens up the door for larger companies that are kind of doing this on the dark web, and they're taking their intelligence from there, and they're not. In those cases, they're working with another company to disclose those, right? But this could be anybody. I mean, this could be any citizen in Columbus or anywhere else.
No, it can, and I'll tell you, from working on previous breaches at this company at Secure Cyber, we have had people call us. Cybersecurity companies call the entity that we're investigating and say, we have access to your data on the dark web. Do you want to contract with us for us to go look at it for you?
Yeah.
Those are called ambulance chasers.
Right.
So that happens. And that was just some company that picked up the phone and said, I've got your data. And that probably happens all the time. People listening are like, yeah, I've had people call me and say, my data's on the dark web. Do you want to contract with me and I'll go look at it for you? What's the difference with that?
I don't know. That feels shady.
It does. It does feel. It's because it's an ambulance chaser. Anyway. Okay. I think we've beat that down.
Yeah.
Completely. So, do you want to go on Schneider Electric? Schneider Electric.
Yeah. Schneider Electric confirms a dev platform breach actually through Jira, and I didn't realize how big Schneider Electric really. I mean,
they're huge, man.
Yeah.
So that used to be, didn't that used to be APC, or they bought APC, the American Power Conversion, the big battery backup company?
Yeah.
I think that's all Schneider Electric now.
Yeah, they're really big. I was kind of researching them after the story, and I was like, wow, they're all over the place. Yeah. But this was this is another third party. It was through Jira. So they got access to, I think, some of their, what does it say here?
Email addresses and full names in their dev system. So 400,000 rows of user data. It doesn't say what the user data is, other than 75,000 of those 400,000 were email addresses and full names.
Yeah. Lock down your dev environments too, right? I know those are kind of normally separate, maybe a little bit more lax, but normally the data comes from somewhere, and if it's not being scrubbed beforehand, it's just as risky as your production data set.
Well, and I'm going to guess, too, that multi-factor wasn't involved here, which might be, it doesn't say if it was or was not, right? I'm just assuming that their Jira environment that they accessed here maybe didn't have MFA on it. Because I think they said that they were able to, I don't know how they were able to get the credentials to their Jira environment. I'm going to guess some type of info stealer malware or something, which is more prominent nowadays.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. What else we got? DocuSign.
Yeah.
Nothing could possibly go wrong there.
This is a big one. So DocuSign envelopes, API abuse. So they're sending fake invoices via DocuSign. That's just, it's just going right through mail filters, right? I mean, how many of us use DocuSign to just get business done.
I'm terrified of DocuSign anymore. In this particular instance, they're using the API now.
Yeah.
And can't they actually authorize payments?
Yeah. Yep. So impersonating brands like Norton and PayPal.
Norton antivirus?
Yeah, I think so.
Does anybody use that?
I'd say a lot of people still.
Really?
I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That's a whole other discussion.
Yeah. So, they're coming from a legitimate DocuSign domain. So they're just going right through email filters, no problem.
Yeah. So this is different than the impersonation stuff. I would really, really look out for this. This is definitely an instance where you need to probably get in front of your users and be getting this information out that this is a little bit different attack than what we've seen normally. So this is more deadly.
Yeah, I would say, anytime you get a DocuSign, we have a process where we just kind of follow up internally. We're a little smaller, so I can just yell over the wall to Judy. But
right.
But in larger companies, right? This may be two completely separate different departments where emails are flying back and forth. I can totally see this impacting a lot of people.
All right, cool. Interpol.
Yeah. So
do you know what Interpol stands for?
No.
International Police.
Oh.
Not a lot of people know that.
I thought you had some acronym.
No,
for it.
no. I was just throwing down nuggets of knowledge.
Oh.
International Police.
Man,
go ahead. What
like the World Police.
Something like that. Yeah, nice. I've actually got some really cool cop stories about Interpol, but we'll save that for another day.
Another episode.
Right.
It looks like they've been busy through April through August. 95 countries. They took down 22,000 IP addresses, arrested 41 people, over 1,000 servers that they confiscated. So
that's a lot of servers.
That's a lot of servers in a lot of different places. So
I think we're seeing some really good collaboration across entities in the world right now. I know there's been some significant arrests, which is different than the indictments, right? So we can indict Chinese hackers, but we'll never arrest them, right? Because we'll never find them.
Right.
But I'm happy to see these types of things. We should bring these onto the show more often to just give people. I know cyber is usually always a doom and gloom thing, so. I think there has been some great collaborations across firms. In this particular case, Kaspersky, Trend, and some other organizations got together to help take these entities down. Yeah,
I think we're seeing a better public-private partnership going on. We talked a couple of weeks ago about Microsoft putting out honeypots to kind of gather intel on these that they can then turn over. So
yeah,
I think it's important, especially for the big players in the tech to really team up. So
cool. I like it.
Well, let's jump down to this one. So speaking of arrests, the suspect behind Snowflake was arrested in Canada.
Yeah. Did you notice that his, it says Alexander Connor? What is it with bad guys going by Connor, or not Connor Goodwolf wasn't a bad guy, but
it wasn't.
I just mean what's that? I don't know. Anyway. So this was the guy that was behind, one of the guys that was behind the Snowflake attack.
Yeah, that was 165 organizations. It hit some big ones: AT&T, Ticketmaster. There was some big ones there. So I just can't imagine what goes into catching this one guy behind something like that.
Right.
So,
well, and like in the previous story, I'm sure there's a lot of collaboration, amongst federal authorities and researchers and those types of things. I know there's a whole process involved with tracking, the wallets, the crypto wallets and stuff like that. So, no, it's great to see that. Again, another story about MFA. Making sure MFA is on.
The silver linings, right? So the good news of all of this is Snowflake has enforced MFA.
Right.
And stronger password requirements. So
right. Well, the obvious question is, why did it take an incident like this for an organization as large as Snowflake to say, we probably should turn on MFA by default on all of our accounts?
Isn't it funny how a little bit of pain will bring some change?
Right.
Hindsight's 2020.
It sure is. All right. Well, that's all we have for today. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more in the next week. That's for sure. We didn't talk about the election, and we promised we would.
Yeah. So
What was the story that we were going to go after for that? Was it the one we tried the Knicks?
Yeah, I think so. So, well, the FBI and CISA has put out like some information talking about disinformation campaigns.
They did, yes.
I had expected that we'll see more of that in the next couple weeks. I was kind of surprised we didn't see anything about it like for this week. But yeah, I mean, I was really kind of surprised.
Well, you were telling me, I think what got started, you were telling me that you saw Chris Krebs on NPR or something, right?
Yeah. So it was, and I got him confused. It was Chris Krebs, the CISA guy on NPR.
Yeah, not related to Brian Krebs.
Right. That he was talking about like the faith that he had in the election. He thought it was fair and safe this time, and it was fair and safe last time. He didn't see anything, but
okay,
they kind of got us talking about like voting machines and just some weird text that we had seen.
Yeah, so let me just comment on that real quick. Our election system is decentralized. That's for sure. It's Thursday, November 7th, 2 days after election day, and we're still waiting for the state of Arizona to give us the results. All that to say is everybody does, the thing though is that everybody does an election differently. So let's speak about Ohio specifically. Ohio Board of Elections are done at the county level. So there's a county Board of Elections for all 88 counties in the state of Ohio. In the state of Ohio, you have the option, not in all counties, because you said you've never even seen a digital electronic voting machine, right?
Yeah.
So in Montgomery County, where I am, I had that option, but I could also fill out a paper ballot or what they called a manual ballot.
Okay.
But let's talk about the electronic devices just for a moment. If you needed to do it, if you were a bad guy that wanted to influence or change votes, would it be the question is, would it be possible? And I think it is possible because those devices have to be introduced to some type of connection at some point. Now, those are details I don't have. Like, I don't know what the exact process is to unpack these electronic voting machines, how to update their firmware.
Yeah.
Is there a process during the process of loading ballots onto a device? Is there an opportunity to introduce something malware related? It's software, so it requires updates. I don't know what the operating system is. There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, it seems like you would have to be so far upstream.
Yeah,
like this would take. I mean, it's not something that just happens like tomorrow, right?
You mean like blowing up 3,000 pagers at the same time?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that took some planning. That wasn't like just a
minute
thing.
But to just say, I'll just end it with this. Like, if you really wanted to, yes, I think it would be extremely involved. I think it would be very planned out. I think you'd have to go after swing states and swing cities. So I think you'd be at like Atlanta, Georgia, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Yeah. It wouldn't be something where you're going to be able to influence the election at the entire state. Although to say that all those results county-wise do report up.
Right. That pager thing, well played there. That was a good analogy. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Just when you think something like that couldn't possibly happen, right?
Yeah.
You get checked by, maybe it can happen. So I don't know. Anyway, okay, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining. Please like and subscribe. Share this podcast with others. I'm Sean.
I'm Chad.
And we'll catch you next time.